The net approval rating on Trump's administration program to deport immigrants who are in the country illegally. It was plus 18 points at the beginning of his presidency, net approval rating. That is very, very positive. It was one of the most popular things in the Trump administration agenda. But now you come over to this side of the screen, look at that. That's over a 25-point switcheroo in the negative direction.
We, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from US citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them.
Well, you just heard from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota Police Chief Mark Burley, who detailed that ICE is not only abusing ordinary American citizens or those suspected of being in the country illegally. It turns out ICE agents are also racially profiling and harassing actual sworn officers, police officers in Minnesota. Now, it is important to hear more from Burley and what he had to say about the experiences that deputies have had with ICE agents on the ground in Minneapolis and Minnesota in general. Because make no mistake about it, you will hear over and over again from defenders of the Trump administration or those who are, very concerned about carrying out immigration enforcement, raids, that no, this isn't happening. Everything is normal. Everything is above, above any possible criminality or illegality. You don't have to worry about anything. ICE is just trying to do their jobs. But you know what? Not according to, again, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota Police Chief Mark Burley. Let's hear more from what he had to say.
In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a US citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone in an attempt to record the incident. The phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
You literally have militarized federal agents pulling over random people who don't look lily white to ask them for their papers, to ask them whether they're here in this country legally. Now look, there might be some who think that's totally okay. I don't fall in that category at all. Because those types of actions by militarized federal agents are in no way indicative of a free society. I don't want to see militarized law enforcement or federal agents on our streets, harassing and terrorizing ordinary people. And it's one thing to hear the types of comments you just heard from Police Chief Burley, from let's say a left-winger who has espoused views that are supportive of open borders, right? You can nitpick and you can say, oh, well, this person's got an agenda. Are you gonna make the same argument about this police chief? By the way, he wasn't the only member of law enforcement who's been raising red flags over what ICE has been carrying out. So let me give you a few other examples. There's Chief Axel Henry from the St. Paul Police. He had something to say too. He was quoted as saying, can we find a way to make sure that we can do these things, meaning enforce our immigration laws, without scaring the hell out of our community members and freaking everyone out? People are scared to death and afraid to go outside. Is this the America everyone wants to live in? This has gone beyond enforcing immigration laws. I mean, it had already gone beyond enforcing immigration laws well before the police chief, Burley, decided to hold this press conference. We're just gonna be okay with racially profiling people in America, which is a diverse country that has people from all over the world who came from other countries, sure, but might have been here for multiple generations. They just don't, they don't have blonde hair, light skin. Imagine pulling cops over to ask them for their papers. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And I'm glad that local law enforcement decided to carry out this press conference and let the American people know what's really going on in the ground. Because yeah, I get it, our media is super polarized. Our media tends to serve validation to one political extreme or the other, but what's the reality? And the reality is we are normalizing militarized federal agents on our streets. And do we want to live in that kind of society? My answer is no. I don't want to live in that type of society. In fact, I thought the United States was supposed to be better than that. I thought the United States was supposed to stand out from other authoritarian countries by not allowing people who work for us to terrorize us. And when I say work for us, I mean that in every sense of the word. We pay their damn salaries. We pay them to enforce the laws that our elected representatives passed. ICE isn't supposed to go around coercing people, threatening people, shooting people, profiling people, but that's what's going on right now. It could have something to do with the fact that, Trump doesn't really care about basic things like training. I mean, he's a moron himself, not someone who's really interested in new ideas, new information, getting trained on doing his job properly. Not really something he personally is interested in. But ICE officers went from having 6 months of training, which I would venture to say still isn't enough, but okay. They went from 6 months of training to just 47 days of training. You wanna know why? Oh, I'm the 47th president. Oh, wouldn't it be cute if we cut down their training to 47 days? What a loser. Total, undeniable loser. I have grown, and it's not a new thing. This has been percolating for a while. I have grown increasingly distrustful of our government, and I am not in favor of concentrating more power in our government. Unfortunately, that has been the case. That's what has happened, okay, over the last several years, especially beginning with Trump's first administration. And now we have a situation where we have militarized police officials, or I should say militarized federal agents, ICE officials, Border Patrol agents, roaming our streets, basically abusing people, racially profiling people. And I thought the mechanisms that we have in place to fight back against this type of authoritarianism, tyranny, harassment would maybe work, but here's the problem. It doesn't work when you don't have an opposition party that has, I don't know, courage, a little bit of fight in them. I mean, where are the Democrats on this issue? Other than tweeting about it, other than whining about it, other than putting statements out about it, which by the way, us American citizens can just do ourselves. We don't need to elect someone to do that for us. But they haven't done much other than that. It's so utterly frustrating and it's crazy. It's crazy. Now you literally have local law enforcement talking about how their own deputies are being racially profiled and harassed by militarized federal agents purporting to carry out immigration enforcement. Are they? Are they? Stories coming out regarding individuals who were arrested on January 6th for storming the Capitol. Looks like some of them have gotten hired as ICE officials, or I should say ICE agents. This is absolutely crazy. So this is also hurting the Republicans politically, because I know these piece of crap, cowardly politicians who might actually have an issue with what the Trump administration is doing but aren't saying a damn thing about it, they'll only be moved to action if maybe they're starting to lose support among Republican voters. And it looks like, I mean, when it comes to independent voters, Trump is done, totally lost that coalition that he built in order to win the popular vote. But overall, when you look at the American electorate, where are their hearts and minds on the issue of ICE essentially terrorizing communities across the country? I shouldn't say across the country, terrorizing blue cities and towns across the country. Let's watch.
This was such a strength for the president of the United States. The net approval rating on Trump's administration program to deport immigrants who are in the country illegally. It was plus 18 points at the beginning of his presidency, net approval rating. That is very, very positive. It was one of the most popular things in the Trump administration agenda. But now you come over to this side of the screen, look at that. That's over a 25-point switcheroo in the negative direction. Now the program is way, way, way underwater at minus 8 points. Okay, the Trump administration is prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals or others. You go back to June, the majority of Americans, 53%, said the Trump administration was prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals compared to just 47% who said others. Come to this side. What do we have now? A complete switcheroo. Now what you see is the majority of the American people believe that the Trump administration is not prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals. In fact, they're prioritizing deporting others at 56%.
ICE even arrested some Native Americans. They detained Native Americans who, I don't know if they need to be informed about this. They have more of a right to be here than anyone else. And when it comes to local law enforcement and how the DOJ is handling some of the allegations against these agents and their, harassment and profiling of literal law enforcement deputies, it doesn't seem like they care too much at all about what's going on. In fact, they want to punish local law enforcement. So today, in fact, the Justice Department sent subpoenas to at least 5 Democratic officials in Minnesota. That included Governor Tim Walz, unsurprisingly, Mayor Jacob Fry of Minneapolis, and Mayor Coley Herr of St. Paul. Okay, so the subpoenas are related to policies on immigration enforcement efforts in the state. And their big gripe is that, the police are standing in our way when there's really no indication of that whatsoever. That's the excuse they usually use. And I get it. By the way, I get that there are very particular provisions in some sanctuary city and state laws that, if you ask me, don't make sense. The American people overwhelmingly want to deport individuals who are here illegally who have been convicted of crimes. So if you have the federal government asking municipalities and cities, hey, here is a retainer for this individual after they serve their sentence because we want to deport them. How about in that one very narrow instance, you work with them so they can't have something to hang their hat on as they're terrorizing ordinary people in communities like Minneapolis, St. Paul. But honestly, at this point, that's my only issue with these sanctuary city laws. When they do provide cover and refuse to comply in specific instances of someone who's been convicted, who is a criminal and should be deported. But other than that, the Trump administration has absolutely no justification for what we are seeing on our streets right now. The chaos and the intimidation tactics are the point. And I'm sure Trump is looking at the polling. He wants nothing more than constant validation and ass kissing. It is pathetic. I've never seen a grown man be this obsessed with himself, but here we are. And so I'm sure he's seen some of this polling, and wouldn't you know it, he's softening his message a little bit when it comes to, the 37-year-old mom who was shot in the face by an ICE agent in Minnesota, Renee Good. Now, if you can remember, previously, Trump said of Renee Good immediately after she was shot to death by an ICE agent, quote, "She behaved horribly, and then she ran him over. She didn't try to run him over, she ran him over." Now, we've all seen the videos featuring Renee Good getting shot to death by an ICE agent, and in no way did she run an ICE agent over, in no way. And maybe he got some backlash for being a disgusting creep and defaming an American citizen based on nothing. Based on, he hadn't even watched the video yet, by the way. He saw the video for the first time during an interview. But now he's changed his tune a little bit. But of course, there's gotta be a narcissistic reason why. So see if you can catch it. Let's watch.
They're gonna make mistakes sometimes. ICE is gonna be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people. They're gonna make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was, had the tragedy, it's a tragedy, it's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents, and her father in particular I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way. I don't know, it's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans. It's so sad. It just happens. It's terrible.
It just happens? It's sad because her parents are Trump supporters, that's why it's sad? You don't think it's sad that because of your policies and your hiring practices when it comes to ICE, you have created chaotic situations on American streets that have led to people getting killed? How many people who have been detained by ICE during your second term have died while in ICE custody? So far this year is set to break a new record. And we already know about how many literal American citizens have been detained by ICE for being suspected of being undocumented. Even though they say over and over again, I'm an American citizen, I'm an American citizen. Who the hell walks around with immigration papers? Who the hell walks around with their birth certificate? I guess if you have a little bit of a tan, tint in your skin, you better walk around with your birth certificate. You better walk around with your papers. We live in a free society, that's what this is? No, this isn't a free society. Hasn't been in a long, long time. I mean, you couple this with people getting confronted by cops at their residences because they posted something critical of Israel. Is that what happens in a free and open society? Is that what happens in a democracy? The Democrats who were fear-mongering about the loss of democracy the most, of course, only during the election, suddenly super quiet, super quiet. Congress is useless, okay? These elected lawmakers, these political leaders are useless, too busy fundraising, not enough time to actually do a damn thing to protect the American people from what the federal government is currently up to, from what the White House is currently up to, hiring a bunch of criminals who don't respect our rule of law, don't respect our democratic process and the outcome of our general election. Those are the people who are getting hired for ICE right now. And rather than having appropriate training, which I can't believe was only 6 months, but it was, they're getting 47 days. Congratulations, America. This is what tyranny looks like. I hope you enjoy the armed federal agents in your towns, right-wing voters. But you probably won't, that's the thing, because we're so divided and political actions are motivated by partisanship. So it's only the blue cities and the blue states that are dealing with this. But I just want to ask you, if you happen to be a conservative or you happen to vote for Republicans, how would you feel if there were militarized federal agents roaming your streets and asking you for your papers? And do you want to live in a country like that? Because I don't.
Prove you are getting the worst of the worst. Show us the murderers and the rapists and the killers that you are arresting. Stop yourself. Then tell us you're not rounding up.
With a picture.
You can't stop yourself, man.
Hang on a second.
Zip it.
Look, I got to be honest, okay? Lee McGowan, who's the host of Politics Girl, is kind of on a generational run, like 2 nights in a row. First night, she crushes Scott Jennings. Second night, she crushes another right winger on the issue of Trump using ICE to basically do what we've been seeing on the streets of Minnesota. Okay, so Cenk, your 2 cents before I show you the goods.
Sure, I want to see more. Are you crazy? Let's go on a crushing spree. And most importantly, guys, the tide has turned. So now not only are they getting crushed all over media, but a lot of the independents are now making fun of the right wing who are being cucks for Trump. Love it.
So ICE agents, as we all know and we've all seen, have kind of gotten drunk off the power and impunity that they've been enjoying, especially in Minnesota, where local law enforcement are now saying that ICE has been racially profiling their own deputies, along with, of course, ordinary members of their community. So let's just get a little refresher on that.
In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a US citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
Now, that was the police chief for Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. And the CNN panel discussed what's been going down in Minnesota. During that conversation, Republican strategist Kristen Davison argued that we're in this situation because of the Biden administration. Let's take a look.
What can't be denied is that we are in this situation because Democrats under the Biden administration sat back and let this happen for 4 years. But we've had 8 months where not one illegal immigrant has crossed over the border, and that's because of the Trump administration.
I hear what you're saying, but the problem is, you see, it's not a question of Democrats versus Republicans. It's a question of the truth.
Choice.
The question of the truth. Neither one of the parties want to tell the truth. So if you two just want to continually be preoccupied with being parasitic on the Democrats, we can talk about the Democrats till the cows come home. There's no doubt that the Democrats did, in fact, were a colossal failure when it came to immigration. That's a fact.
Thank you.
But the other truth is this. The other truth is this, though. Let me finish now, brother. Don't just keep your flow coming out of University of Mississippi now. If every immigrant disappeared in America tomorrow, which makes it a distraction now to talk about immigrants, we still have poverty. We still have deep conflict, class, racial conflict.
You'd have a lot less crime.
Well,
you'd have a lot less
crime. A lot of Native Americans, a lot of Americans vote.
You'd have a lot less crime.
But no, it's all a distraction. It's all a distraction.
Okay, I want to co-sign onto what was just said there. It seems like there was agreement from both sides that the Biden administration failed miserably on immigration policy. And I do believe it got us to where we are today. I do. And if the Democrats don't take responsibility for that and change course moving forward, then they only have themselves to blame. We can't keep doing this pendulum swing from not enforcing immigration laws to doing whatever the hell we're seeing on our streets right now, which is victimizing American citizens, by the way. Okay. But Jake, I want to get your thoughts before I get to where it gets real heated.
Yeah, so 2 more cents here. First of all, I totally agree with Cornel West. And part of the reason for that is that this whole right wing, left wing thing, even though I just said right wing a minute ago, as soon as I said it, it's kind of a misnomer. So like if you say extreme right loves what ICE is doing, definitely. Maybe a lot of the, not maybe, I'm sure a lot of the right loves what ICE is doing, right? But really it's not about right or left. It's about like cucks for Trump, And to be honest, cucks for Democratic leadership, right? Cucks for Biden, et cetera. And those guys versus the rest of us who are rational, right? And I think that's 2/3 of the country. And so the cucks for Trump will be like, oh, I love what ICE is doing. Shoot more in the face. Yeah, right? Whereas a lot of independents who voted for Trump, and yeah, a decent amount of right-wingers who voted for Trump are like, I wanted you to close the border. Great job. That's why I was very happy in the beginning. I wanted you to take out the undocumented folks who were criminals. Great job. I didn't want you to shoot moms in the face 3 times. I don't know why that's so unclear, right? And finally, on that note, look, the masks and the lack of badges are way more problematic than I think Trump and his team realize. When people see that, they see thugs, they see like almost vigilantes. They don't see police officers because police officers have badges and they don't wear masks. So it's an enormous problem for Trump.
I mean, look, a lot of independents have turned on Trump, independents who ended up voting for him in the last general election. And I have seen, it's not nearly enough, but I have seen some Trump supporters turn on him as well on the right, because what they see is tyrannical government, right? When they see militarized federal agents on the streets like that, they're supposedly sensitive to big government, big daddy watch, or big brother watching. And it's more than just watching. Obviously, they're engaging in physical violence against all sorts of people, including American citizens. And as we heard yesterday and today in that video I showed, violence against actual sworn deputies, local police. So with that in mind, as the panel discussed what was going on in Minnesota, things started to really heat up between conservative podcaster Ben Ferguson and McGowan. Let's take a look at that.
I think that what I'm hearing a lot is the Democrats, Biden. Dr. West explained that. And I think the thing is, it's not political to say that we don't want murderers in our country. We don't want pedophiles in our country. We want those people identified and we want those people punished.
Why are you not working with ICE to get rid of them?
Hold on a second.
No, but it's a fair question.
Hold on a second. Just let her. And you.
No, but you just said you want to get rid of them, but you don't work with ICE.
Let's let her make her point so we can understand what she's trying to say. Go ahead.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Go ahead, Lee.
We all want that, okay? And if Donald Trump wants to get on TV and say, our problem is we haven't highlighted our accomplishments enough, I would say, great, highlight your accomplishments, prove it. Prove you are getting the worst of the worst. Show us the murderers and the rapists and the killers that you are arresting. Stop yourself. Then tell us you're not rounding up.
With a picture.
You can't stop yourself, man.
Hang on a second.
Zip it.
Please.
No, I'm sorry, you're not my mom. And second of all, you don't get to make it up. We've had the posters at the White House, the people that have been arrested. You said show them to me. We have showed them to you.
Ben, just a second.
Well, she's got a point, and Ferguson is wrong because some data has come out today, and it looks into who the Trump administration is actually targeting, and it's not the violent criminals that are here illegally. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but I wanted you to kind of weigh in first, Cenk.
Look, you're not my mom line is so annoying. Look, people interrupt all the time. I get it. But let her finish the damn point. If you don't let the person finish the point, you have no idea what they're about to say. And that happens to me all the time because I'll start with, look, on the one hand, and before I get to the actual point I want to make, which is on the other hand, they'll interrupt and be like, it drives me crazy. So I like that she was girl boss there. I like that she's regulating. And then on the main point that she's making, of course, if these are all like, so today ICE, this is the one thing I saw, arrested a 5-year-old. I just found out from my daughter that they arrest somebody in her middle school. So they're grabbing up kids and all these people that live in our community that are not criminals. So if you say they're all criminals, prove it, but you can't prove it because of the numbers Anna's about to give it to you.
Yes, okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. So first of all, I came across a video out of Long Beach, California last night that I wanted to share with you all because if you're wondering, well, how did the Trump administration lose so much support on immigration policies when there was such widespread support for Trump's immigration policies in the beginning of his second term? And honestly, I think it's because of videos like this. So I'll explain a little bit. My mic will be up. But this is, again, in Long Beach, California, where ICE agents were seen taking 2 men who were working as landscapers, So you see them being detained, walked away. According to the Long Beach Post on Instagram, one gardener attempted to scale a nearby wall, but a group of armed agents, mostly masked, chased him down. He told agents that he was born at Memorial, meaning he was born here in the United States, a hospital in Long Beach specifically, and that he was a dual citizen. But the agent said that he would investigate that as the man was loaded into the back of an SUV. Now, if you're wondering, well, why would he run if he's a US citizen? I mean, there are plenty of US citizens now, lots of stories of US citizens who have been detained by ICE. And the profiling, you don't look like a lily white American, they're gonna ask you for your papers, like that's been going on. So people are terrified. On top of that, the facts don't lie. I wanna get to that a little bit. So there's a new analysis done by the UCLA Center for Neighborhood Knowledge. It was released yesterday, and here are the details. Using ICE detention data from February 2024 through September 2025, the report shows that non-criminal Latinos have become a central target of enforcement, despite claims that policy prioritizes serious offenders. Monthly detentions of Latinos without criminal records increased sixfold compared to the final year of the Biden administration. So if you look at the dates, you can tell, okay, well, this also covers some of the Biden administration, right? Which is important. It's important that they do that so you can do a comparative analysis. And so let's take a look at this visual because you're gonna get some interesting information here. All right, so as you can see, this is average number of Latinos entering ICE detention per month by criminal status. And the non-criminal element is highlighted in the solid blue line. And so you can see that number really jump up during the Trump administration. So these are non-criminal undocumented immigrants who have been detained by ICE. And if you break it down by country of citizenship, detainees of non-criminal Mexican and Guatemalan descent increased eightfold. Venezuelans, their arrests increased fourfold under Trump. Again, we're only talking about non-criminals. The study states, we focus on this group because they are unambiguously not the worst of the worst, but instead are law-abiding and contributing members of society. They also add that these are the types of immigrants that an overwhelming majority of Americans believe are a good thing for this country today and should have a path to citizenship. So I've got a few more details if we have time for them, but Cenk, jump in.
Two important points here. Good news, bad news. So the bad news is that I think that Trump is doing this for two reasons. One is to appease his hardcore base, and the hardcore base does like this. So in that sense, it's not coming out of nowhere, even though the great majority of Americans do not like this, right? But the second reason I think he's doing it is more important, and the real reason, which is he wants to agitate. And he wants to dig into these communities and cause so much havoc until someone does something back. And when they do, that's it, even time for a bigger police state and a bigger military presence and the Insurrection Act, and make sure that I get my shock troops on the ground. Why do we need shock troops in America? Our problem was higher prices, not because we didn't have military and thugs en masse in the streets trying to cause trouble. I mean, at this point, is ICE preventing more crime or creating more crime? What problem is it trying to fix? No, this is just agitate, so something goes wrong, so you'll have an excuse to have a bigger presence, a military presence, because he's authoritarian by nature. It's a giant problem, especially if you're among the people who said, don't tread on me, because this is a lot of treading, right? And finally, the good news. Look, a couple months ago, I told you guys, that's it. He's gonna lose the Latino vote in unprecedented fashion for the Republican Party. They had him. So many Latinos voted for Trump. It was historic rate, but poof, it's all gone. Now, Karl Rove's on Fox News a couple of days ago going, we might lose Texas. All the Hispanics are gone. Why? Because they told him this wasn't about race and that they were just gonna get the bad guys. And now it turns out it looks like it was partly about race. And if you're one of the Trump supporters, you're like, no way, it's not about race. Okay, yeah, that's fine. About race. But go tell Latinos that are getting picked up when they're US citizens that it's not about race. And you can tell them until you're blue in the face, they're not gonna believe you and they're not gonna vote for you.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. I mean, you literally have off-duty police officers in Minnesota getting racially profiled by ICE agents. And I know this because the police chief in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, held a press conference about it. So any final words, Cenk?
And lastly, the disaster is in what the cop in Minnesota was saying earlier in the video, which is now we got supposed federal law enforcement drawing guns on actual cops, the cops that are in your community and supposed to protect you. Now, what are they gonna do the first time that there's a shooting between local and federal law enforcement? Because Trump's agitating and constantly sending these guys in with almost no training and trying to cause trouble. One day they're gonna cause trouble with an actual cop, and then we're gonna have a true disaster on our hands.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.